And to discuss this, we have with us Awula Serwah. She's the founder and coordinator of Eco-Conscious Citizens, as well as Nii Maama Akita, who's the director of Eco-Conscious Citizens. Business PM is brought to you in partnership with the Center for Sustainable Transformation, CEST. Good evening once again. If you just tuned in, you're welcome to another enlightening episode of our weekly SDG Hub here on Asaase Radio, your go-to platform for in-depth conversations on pressing global issues and sustainable development goals, run by the Center for Sustainable Transformation, CEST, here on Asaase Radio. I'm your host, Kevin Annan, and as usual, I'm together with my co-host,
Rosemary Balami.
She's from the Young Reporters for the Environment, YRE Ghana, a program under CEST. Today, we are tackling this critical issue, battling encroachment and protecting Ghana's green urban spaces. Ghana's urban spaces are home to vital green spaces, including parks and gardens, which play a crucial role in enhancing the environment and well-being of communities. However, these green spaces are increasingly under threat from encroachment and unauthorized developments. Encroachment not only poses environmental risks, but also deprives communities of valuable recreational activities and biodiversity hotspots.
That's right, Kevin. The battle to protect Ghana's green urban spaces is a pressing issue that requires urgent attention and concerted efforts from various stakeholders. And so today, we get to deep dive into this issue, delve into the challenges of battling encroachment and explore strategies to safeguard our urban green spaces for future generations.
Absolutely. And so joining us today are seasoned guests who are actively engaged in the fight to protect these vital green areas. And they are championing the preservation of Ghana's green spaces. Once again, we are glad to have in the studio with us Awula Serwah, who is the founder and coordinator of Eco-Conscious Citizens, and Nii Maama Akita, who is the director of Eco-Conscious Citizens. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you for having us.
Yes. Mama, we've had you here before, but this is the first time of...
Actually, I've been here before when Ruby was here.
Oh.
All right.
That was a few years ago.
No, I mean on this show.
No,
yes. Asaase, I guess.
Yes, so you're welcome to the SDG Hub here on Asaase.
Thank you very much.
First time. Yes, it's very good to have you. For starters, would like you to give us a brief introduction of yourself and what you do, and then afterwards we'll come to Mama as well.
Yeah.
Well, good evening. My name is Awula Serwah, and I'm a lawyer by profession, but I'm passionate about the environment, and I've been so for many years. Over 20 odd years ago, I had the Isla Environmental Group, where we dealt with environmental issues. Okay. We formed Eco-Conscious Citizens in 2019 as a response to the degradation of our environment, particularly our green spaces. And of course, we do a number of campaigns, and I think green spaces go with noise, because if you want a serene environment, you don't want boom, boom, boom everywhere. So we're also campaigning against noise pollution. Okay. So it's our green spaces, and that includes everything. We're also campaigning against illegal mining and so on and so forth. Wow. So that's us.
Thank you very much. Mama.
Yes. I'm a postgraduate student at the University of Ghana reading MPhil Environmental Science. And I've been with Eco-Conscious for about 5 years, from 2019. About 5 years, yes. I'm very passionate about the environment and especially biodiversity and parks. I'm also the General Secretary of YRE Ghana with Rosemary. Yes, I work with Rosemary as well. So anything environment,
nice. Well, you're welcome once again. Awula, I'd like to start with you as we go into the conversation. Can you please shed some light on the importance of urban green spaces?
Well, urban green spaces are crucial to our health and well-being. In the first place, we all know about air pollution, whether from vehicles, from so many sources, we have air pollution. And what the green spaces do, especially the trees, is that it purifies the air for us. So for starters, the green spaces are purifying the air. And also we know that they make room for so many species. Yeah. But in addition to that, they help our health and well-being You sit there and the whole serenity. And that was why the good Lord put us in the Garden of Eden. He didn't put us in a concrete jungle.
Yeah.
And also, we need the green spaces. Just imagine there's an earthquake. Where are you going to run to? So you need the green spaces in cases of earthquakes where you have a safe place to go. And of course, there's flooding as well. What the green spaces do is that they soak up the excess water. So they have multiple benefits, but primarily our health and well-being. And that's why the good Lord puts us in the Garden of Eden.
Thank you very much. Mama, is there anything you'd like to add to that on the importance of urban space?
Good health and well-being. So SDG 3, and this is the SDG hub.
Exactly.
When it comes to mental health, green spaces also play that role. You get to socialize with people, not staying indoors the whole time. When it comes to noise, you need somewhere quiet.
Yeah.
After a long day's work, you need to go somewhere quiet. We have parks, you have Ebu Botanical Gardens, you have Legon Botanical Gardens, you have parks and gardens, places where people meet, interact. So it improves your health. You need a place to go for jogging, exercise. There are parks around. But Ghana, it's a challenge. Even our parks, the little or the small spaces we have, we are selling them or converting them into various forms.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So let's talk about encroachment, Awula. As a conservationist, how serious is the threat of encroachment to Ghana's urban green spaces?
It's a very serious threat. I mean, if you go to what used to be town and country planning, you find out that every area has a green space. Cantonments, Laboni, Joel, wherever there's a green space. But look at what we see on the ground. We haven't kept to anything, and we've had haphazard development, and we've built on our green spaces. And this is just not a good thing to do. We've talked about the importance of our green spaces, that every area, some people may be blessed to have beautiful gardens where they can go with their family and friends and enjoy the green space and do all the things that green spaces are there for. But that's not the situation for everybody. That's why in every sensible country where there are settlements, there's always a park. But unfortunately, we've been let down by our authorities. They have allowed individuals to build on our green spaces, and they have done absolutely nothing about it. Regarding eco-conscious citizens, our first campaign was, apart from we had previously campaigned against illegal mining, but one of our first campaigns was parks and gardens, when we found out that this fantastic idea of our first president, that is to have parks across Ghana, not just in Accra, but in all the regional capitals, to have parks. And the raison d'etre of parks and gardens was also to beautify our green spaces and to acquire lands for green spaces. And then we find out that very place, there was an attempt to build a multi-story office building on a green space. I mean, who does that? And just to give you a bit of history, Parks and Gardens was established in 1961 as a department. Later on, it became a ministry under Cabinet Minister Okansi. But after the 66 coup, it went back to being a department and is currently under the Ministry of Local Government. And it was the same Ministry of Local Government which was attempting to build or getting a developer to build a multi-story office building on Parks and Gardens land. So you could say that the firefighter was acting as an arsonist. And that is really not on. But thanks to God and the media, we got a lot of media exposure. We had campaigns and so on and so forth. We managed to put an end to it in 2019-20. And now we're in 2024, and it started again.
It was an election year. So we were almost in an election year. And the same thing is happening this year.
So 2024, the same issue.
The same issue. And this one is by an estate developer who I think is a pastor. Is it?
Well, it's an estate developer, Danny Ike Estate Developers. And there's one, Reverend Ezekiel, who is the one who is sort of fronting the whole thing and pushing. But we have said that it cannot happen. It's a green space. Most of our green spaces are gone, and we're not going to sit down and allow this green space to be taken over by an estate developer. I mean, look at the irony of it. A green space, when most of our green spaces are already gone. Why would we as sensible Ghanaians sit down and allow an estate developer, a private person, to take over a public space, a public green space? That's certainly not on.
Not on, indeed.
So you'd say gentrification is a big problem?
Well, you see, it's bigger than that, because you see, you're supposed to have planning. You know, so we are supposed to, when we are planning, we know that this is for a market, this is for a hospital. You don't just build haphazardly. We are somewhere known as the spatial planning,
land use
and spatial planning authority. Thank you very much. So they come in, they know that here is designated for this and that. But what happens is that we just build anyhow, anywhere. And then when it comes to public lands, the Lands Commission has a case to answer because they should not be giving out public lands when they know very well that the use, for example, you have a green space. How would you supervise the giving of a green space to an estate developer? It doesn't work anywhere in a sensible country. So they have a case to answer.
Indeed.
So what I'm saying is that if you want a country not to be developed in a haphazard way, where you have mixed areas, what does that mean? You're supposed to have residential areas, you're supposed to have commercial areas, you're supposed to have business areas, and the reason industrial areas. The reasons why you separate is that things are different. In an industrial area, the noise levels will be different from those of a residential area. So how do you have mixed use? But because we haven't wanted to follow regulation, we haven't understood independence. It doesn't mean that you put all your laws aside. That is not what it's about. You adhere to laws and regulations, which is one thing I think we are allergic to in this country.
Indeed. So now we've seen calls by eco-conscious and other CSOs on these parks and garden issues. Can you provide us with an overview of the recent allegations regarding the lease of, parks and gardens? Is it the one in Ghana, in Accra, or?
Yes, let's be absolutely clear. All over Ghana, all over Ghana, in Wa, for instance, apart from residential buildings on parks and gardens land, they're actually building a petrol station.
Wow.
I mean, who goes and builds a petrol station on a green space? But that's what's being done in Wa. I know from the director of Parks and Gardens that it's everywhere, whether it's Takwa, whether it's Marseille, all our parks and gardens in Ghana are under siege. But coming back to Accra, the headquarters, and by certificate of allocation, 10.8 acres were acquired by the colonial government in 1952 for a horticultural garden, or shall I say nursery, horticultural nursery, 1952. And then when our first president came to power in 1961, he established what you call the Department of Parks and Gardens. And the 10.8 acres were transferred to the Department of Parks and Gardens. Now, this developer is claiming 2.1 something acres. But how does he claim land which was allocated, first of all, to the Ministry of Agriculture by a certificate of allocation? You can't just get up and take it. If you remember, to digress a bit, when it came to Achimota Forest and parts of it wanted to be taken, an executive instrument had to be passed. Right.
Yes.
So you cannot just do it. There's a legal process. You have to go to Parliament. So all these have been laid aside, and he's had the impunity to take parks and gardens to court.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So Danny Ike estate developers have had the impunity, the audacity to take parks and gardens to court.
Shall we avoid mentioning names?
Okay, let's avoid mentioning names. So parks and gardens have been taken to court, and it's a public public information. It's not a secret. If you go to the courts today, it's of public. It's the public domain. It's not in the private domain. So it's not a secret. It's something that's open. A court case is a public.
Then it's open information.
It's open information. So we're not trying to say anything here that is a private matter. It's open information. They've been taken to court. Any public person has a right to see the writ because it's a public, and Parks and Gardens it's not a private person. So it's in the air, it's in the open.
Great. Thanks for that clarity. So Akita, how does encroachment on urban green space impact the environment in local communities?
So I think Awula mentioned when it comes to air quality, we're talking about sustainable cities and communities, your health. If you're in an environment which is concentrated with buildings, no trees, no open spaces, there'll be a lot of pollution. The vehicles, the exhaust, dust in the air. Open spaces purify the environment. They purify the air. They improve the health of the air. It's also a hub for biodiversity. You get a lot of insects around. I know that insects, for example, butterflies, tell you that, yes, it's an indicator of a healthy environment. So all insects are indicators of a healthy environment. They tell you what is going on at a particular place, at a particular time, whether there's a water source There are butterflies.
When you don't see them,
that should tell you that even when there's degradation, there are some butterflies that you find around. We should tell you that, no, listen, there's degradation taking place somewhere. So open spaces play very crucial when it comes to improving mental health, socialization. All these spaces are very important. But in Ghana, if you are not going to church, or you are not at home,
or the mall,
but a green space, I mean, it's a very quiet place.
Is it because we haven't understood the concept of, actually having a feel of nature? Because even when these real estate developers are, building, they don't even take into consideration all these things.
But some do. Because I remember in school, we went to some green spaces, and we sent La Wireless cluster of schools to Parks and Gardens. And they really appreciated. We also brought them to Asaase Garden. It's a private garden. And they really appreciated the whole place, and they wanted to come back. Some haven't seen green spaces before. But once you introduce them to it, let them have a feel of it, let them experience the whole area, they'll get to appreciate it and tell others about it, and they indirectly become ambassadors. And educate other people about it. But here in Ghana, our education system is also a little bit tight. So it doesn't allow you to do things that you want to do.
Still on you, Akita. What has eco-conscious citizens done in response to the encroachment on Parks and Gardens land?
Okay, so with the 2019-2020 issue at Parks and the same Parks and Gardens, we got people to sign a petition. We handed it over to the president. We got a member of parliament to ask a question in parliament why the land was being given out, or there were plans to develop on that land, which wasn't meant. It's a green civic area, right? And so,
yes, it's known as green civic. It's zoned as green civic.
Green civic. So they have the original building. They have a whole area for all that they have to, and people go there to use it. So, I mean, that's one thing we did.
How many people signed the petition?
Well, we got almost 4,000 signatures. That's a lot. But if I might add to what has already been said. So we first of all went to the Attorney General's department to find out what was going on. Then we went to the Ministry of Local Government, and eventually the petition was handed, as has been said, to the Office of the President. And we also went to the Land Use and Spatial Planning Authority because there was an attempt to have the area rezoned from green civic to exclusively civic.
What's the difference?
Well, the difference is that if it's exclusively civic, you don't have to have a single tree there. When it's green civic, the green suggests that you must have some trees there. But if you make it exclusively civic, then you can build as we see so many buildings paved everywhere, not one single tree like you were talking about, Recently, somebody sent us an estate somewhere, beautiful houses, but to me they were ugly because there wasn't a single tree. There's a saying at Parks and Gardens that a home without a tree is charmless. So we do need the trees. Not in addition to purification, also they add some beauty. So all these things were done, and I have to commend LUPSA because they were very bold, and they said that the area is a green zone. It's being used by Parks and Gardens as a horticultural nursery, as the original aim of the land, and therefore they couldn't assist in rezoning the place. However, if you wanted to do that, you would have to go to Parliament, and that they make clear that there's a law, and the laws had to be conformed with. So they did very well, and the area wasn't rezoned. But as has been said, today it is under threat again. But on Saturday, for instance, we went to Parks and Gardens. There's a fair there every first and third Saturday. So we were there on Saturday the 4th, just raising awareness of what most people didn't know, letting them know what's going on, that this place, it's a big place. So it's the area closer to the Russian embassy that's under threat. But it's still Parks and Gardens. So raising awareness and letting people know that you have a voice and you can add your voice to the campaign that's ongoing.
So apart from that success story, the same land which we protected, the trees from the cathedral site, they were moved and replanted at that same zone. So now the trees are there.
Where they were building the National Cathedral.
Yes, they didn't want to just fell all the trees, especially with people talking about felling. So there's a method. It's quite expensive, but you can sort of dig very deep and then get the trees out, and then they were planted at the nursery. And ironically, when they were taking the trees there, the wall that had been built by Parks and Gardens, they damaged it because they had to bring the trees in. And that's where the encroacher used to get to Parks and Gardens and take 2 containers there. And we managed to remove one container was removed by Parks and Gardens. And in the process of removing the second one, he came with heavily built persons, and in the end, it became a police matter.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but the police intervened.
Serious.
The police intervened. They were very professional, and all parties were asked to bring their documents. So the wall has since been repaired by Parks and Gardens.
Okay.
I was coming to some of the challenges that you had faced, but it seems you mentioned some of them.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, that's fine. But are there any other challenges you faced
the challenges
with your work
since
so far?
A lot of people aren't aware of the importance of green spaces. So when it comes to sometimes even signing a petition, people hesitate.
Yeah.
And even we've had some media personnel or journalists being threatened because they report on such issues. We've had a lot of them contacting Awula.
Is it?
Yes.
Wow.
Really?
So a lot of them don't want to do any story on environmental Galamsey and all these other issues.
They're being threatened.
Yes.
We had a press release out on International Press Day, and we didn't mention the names of the journalists, but we did say that journalists had contacted us and had told us about the threats they had faced when they had reported stories about illegal mining. If you notice, Sir Sam Jonah asked why Galamsey wasn't in the public any longer. There was a time when Galamsey. So he asked, why is it? And we are saying that it's quite simple. The journalists, some of them are being threatened, and they are serious threats. And let's face it, a journalist has been murdered before. So some of them are publishing stories, and the perception is that highly placed persons are involved. So when you write a story, you get phone calls. And very recently, an assembly member, not a journalist, an assemblyman in Niase in Zima, he had been reporting to the police that there was illegal mining going on. The police had taken no notice. So together with a group of citizens, they effected what you call a citizen's arrest. They didn't do anything illegal. They went exactly according to the book, arrested illegal miners who happened to be Chinese and Ghanaian, and took them to the police station. Unfortunately, he's receiving death threats. He's being threatened.
This is serious.
Yes.
So, yeah, these are just a few.
Some of the challenges.
These are some serious challenges.
But how do we overcome them?
Yeah.
I would say that we have to overcome them by, first of all, you make a formal complaint to the police, and the IGP needs to act and let his officers know that these are serious complaints and they should be taken seriously. Obviously, he has to watch over his shoulder. The residents need to be patrolling with him so that he doesn't walk alone when he's going. So they can do neighborhood watches over his house. This time to this time, this group of people, this time to this. And then if the IGP makes it clear to the police that if anything happens to them, to the threatened persons, they'll be held accountable. I think there'll be some degree of seriousness in protecting journalists who are trying to, because what is the duty of journalists? To unearth information and bring it to the public domain. And if in doing your work, you're being threatened, and then we don't stand in solidarity with the journalists, then we are also to blame. So we've called on citizens to stand in solidarity with journalists who are doing their job for our benefit.
Indeed. So let's just look at the policy aspect. How can urban planning and development policies be modified to prioritize the preservation and enhancement of green space in Ghana's cities?
Well, I would say that we have very good laws. You see, it's not the absence of laws that's the problem in Ghana. It's the enforcement. So we have all the laws we need. We don't have to pass any additional law. What we need to do is just to enforce the current laws. For example, we're not supposed to build on every inch of your land, pave everywhere. You're not supposed to do that. The law indicates that you can only build on a certain radius of your land because you need to have air rotation. If you build in everywhere, how is the air going to rotate? You're supposed to plant trees. So when you're getting your building permit, or when you're applying for your building permit, these things need to be looked at. But, our systems are not working. The problem with Ghana is not the absence of laws. It's the enforcement of laws and the human beings who actually ensure that our laws are abided. What shall I say? We abide by our laws. And that is the crux of the matter.
Wow.
See, this is a very interesting conversation, but unfortunately, our time is almost
eye-opening as well.
Yes, time has gone by very fast. And this is all the time that we have for today. So We'd like to thank our guests, Awula and Akita, for their valuable insights on this crucial topic. And also thank you to our listeners for tuning in. Remember, preserving green areas isn't just about trees and grass. It's about sustaining life, fostering community, and safeguarding our future.
So please tune in same time next week as we continue discussions on all things sustainable development right here on Asaase Radio 99.5 so that people and the planet can prosper. If you have any topic you want us to discuss, please share with us and shoot an email to sdghub@cestint.org. Remember, dear listeners, to keep raising your voices, keep advocating for change, and keep tuning in to the SDG Hub for more insightful conversations. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and keep advocating for a greener, healthier planet.
And that's a wrap on the SDG Hub. Thank you for staying here with us. We've been speaking with Awula Serwah, founder and coordinator of Eco-Conscious Citizens, and Nii Maama Akita, director of Eco-Conscious Citizens. I've been your host, Kevin Annan, and I did this with my co-host,
Rosemary Balami.
We go back to Caleb.